and welcome to my channel, to my live. I'm Sissin, life coach, motivation speaker, and I speak about everything about self-development, spirituality, and awareness, a little bit of occult stuff as well, spiritual stuff, things like that. But I mostly focus on the human condition, because we are creating our realities regards to our conditions in our human capacity, you see. Yeah. Although we are spirits having a human experience, we are experiencing life through the physicality. Now, the trick is to live as multi-dimensional beings. That's where the trick is. To live as beings that have connection, real connection to source. We're not just human beings. We don't just have bodies. We don't just have bodies. Remember, I'm saying have, because we're not the bodies. We're not the body, neither are we the mind, right? But the body is the avatar. So it's kind of difficult for human beings not to mesh to the body because then of the ego, because the ego is connected to the body. And the ego is what separates you from everybody else and gives you that illusion of separation and separatism, being separate from everybody else, even separate from divine source, from God, right? So the world is run by religion, okay? Everything is based on the teachings of the religions that we actually follow. So the world has the idea that they are the body, that the human beings feel that they are the body and they are the mind, and then that's the only existence that they have. Then we have the Eastern philosophies teaching us something different. We're hearing more about the spirits, that there's more to this reality than just the physical body and the mind. There's the divine sources, the spirit, spirituality. So today we're going to tap into that, but specifically regards to forgiveness. How to escape the matrix, how to escape the separation program, the program of duality in the matrix. Okay, the word matrix just means it's a system. So we're living in a system, in a illusional system, a holographic system, right? Whereby we feel that we're separate from source. Now, what does separation bring suffering? Yesterday I spoke about the Course in Miracles, the teachings about the illusion of the separation that we get to experience every day. When we get up every morning, we have this idea that we are belonging to a tribe, yes, to a family, to a community, but we're separate, right? We're separate beings. And because of that, we're prone to suffering because we feel isolated from each other. My brother cannot understand what I'm going through because he's separate. You understand? And the Course of Miracles teaches you to live out of that type of mindset. And as I said yesterday in my live about the Course of Miracles, the foundation is basically forgiveness. Forgiveness says that no matter what I think I experienced, I forgive you. Because I understand that I'm not different to you. I'm changing my perceptions about changing the perception. I cannot change the past, yes. I can choose how I carry the past. Right? That's where I see it. I cannot change the past, what happened, but I can choose how I can carry the past with grievance or with forgiveness. Okay, in the teachings of the Course of Miracles, forgiveness is not about saying I forgive you in the normal human way. It is a shift in the perception of the mind, moving from fear and judgment to oneness, understanding that we're all connected. One of the key teachings of the Course of Miracles is on love holds no grievance. Just as Yeshua had actually taught in the first century, the character Jesus, right before Christianity became Christianity, right? Yeshua taught about forgiveness, right? That love holds no grievance, that love is everything. Love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? This idea appears in lesson 68 of the workbook, reflecting the central principle of the Course of Miracles, which is about love holds no grievance. Now that means that we tapping into forgiveness. What love holds no grievance really means, according to the course of miracles course. A grievance is a form of resentment, a blame, anger, judgment. So when I have a grievance on my neighbor, I have a form of resentment. I have blame. I blame them for everything that's going on in my life because of one little instance. Somehow people kind of, you know what I mean? They take it a bit too far, right? The anger, it's all about anger. It's about judgments. You are different to me. You're separate from me. You hurt me kind of vibe. And the most interesting thing that in the Christian Bible and New Testament, forgiveness is a key factor. Matthew 5, verse 44, Colossians 3, verse 13, Matthew 6, 14, verse 15. You understand? Proverbs as well, 6, Proverbs 17:19, and Mark 11:25. So if you are Christian and you really understand the Bible, go back to those verses and see how many times forgiveness is actually mentioned in the Bible. So I just mentioned 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses speaking about forgiveness, but there's much more verses in the Bible, in the New Testament Christian Bible, speaking about forgiveness. Then why is forgiveness so difficult for people, including Christians, including people that say they're giving their life to Christ? Why is forgiveness so difficult? Why is it such a challenge for them? And yet it's part of the teachings, right? It's basically because of ego, right? It's basically because of ego. When you look at the word religion, right? Religion is normally based on control. Unfortunately, religion is based on politics. It's linked to politics. It's how the institutions, the governments control the people on a moral principle using religion. So here's a book. Follow the book according to what the book says, and yeah, be a straight, moral, principled person. That's a way of controlling you as well, right? Now, not to say that religion is a bad thing, but it does have its bad side because it's coming from a concept of control. It's a political system. You understand? So, anyway, let's go back to Yeshua's teachings, so-called Jesus, right? Yeshua had a different ideology compared to what the modern Christianity teaches us. Yeshua was trying to tell us that he didn't say he was God, but the Christians or the Roman Catholic Church made or deified Jesus and made him a God. You understand? If you want to know more about this, go and do the research because it's out there. When you deify something, you make it bigger than life itself. Because at the end of the day, the message was to tell the people, the Christian people that believed in Christianity, that hey, you are much lesser than divineness. You are nothing. You're just a sinner, basically, right? Hi, sweetie pie. I'm from South Africa. Where are you tuning from? Where are you based, my lovey? You're new here to my channel. I can see that. Anyway, I'm Sissy, life coach and motivational speaker, and I'm from South Africa. Right, today we're talking about forgiveness now, and I'm tapping into our teachings as Christian people because a lot of the people in this world are Christians, right? The majority of people in Southern Africa, are Christians, mainly because of the colonization. It also has brought in Christianity. Christianity is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but it can be used, or it has been used for evil stuff. You understand? Because just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you are perfect, that your life is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that somehow you are much more superior than other people. Right now, remember, if you go and learn about Christianity, right, you'll get to understand, oh, you're from South Africa to Northwest. I'm from KZN. I'm from KZN, Durban. That's where I'm now streaming from, right? So today we're talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big part of the moral code, but we don't really live forgiveness. We don't live it because we find that somehow the ego comes into play. Why must I forgive you when you hurt me? That's the ego. The ego is telling you that now, why must I forgive you when you hurt me? However, what I'm talking about here, my sweetie pie, is about forgiveness linked to the Course in Miracles. I spoke about it yesterday. You understand? I cannot change the past. I cannot change the past. I cannot change what happened, right? However, I can choose how I carry the past, how I relate to this thing that happened. I can choose to give it a meaning. Remember, everything is neutral without any meaning until you give it a meaning. Your neighbor comes and knocks on your door and says, "Please, I would like you to borrow me some milk." Okay. Already you give a meaning to the little events. Okay, this person got no money, or this person really doesn't talk to me, but now they want my help. You understand? They don't talk to me, they even greet me, but now because they want something, they want my help. That's the meaning you're putting already. But when you say, okay, this person is just like me, I mean, is a person like me that you need, that's not the meaning you give it. Same as anything else. A person so-called hurts you and you give it that meaning. And that meaning now creates a whole reality in your mind. Then that person becomes either a bad person or, yeah, somebody who was lost who made a mistake. You understand? You hurt me, but that was not your intention. You made a mistake. That's not the way of looking at it, right? But now, in the Course of Miracles, we're speaking about love holds no grievances, right? So, in the teachings, in the Course of Miracles, right, forgiveness is not just saying, I forgive you, it's a shift of perception, moving from fear and judgment to love and acceptance, right? One of the key teachings in the course of in miracles speaks about love holds no grievances, right? Forgiveness and trust. So for me, forgiveness is linked to trust. Love is connected to trust. Right now, how do you love somebody that you feel hurt you? How do you tap into that feeling? Firstly, before the love comes the forgiveness, you need to understand the situation, look at the situation for what it is, and say, okay, well, I feel that you hurt me. That's my perception. Unfortunately, if you go and ask that person, okay, did you hurt so and so? That person might say, but I didn't hurt that person. I just said something. I just said something, or the person would have said if it was a violent physical attack on the other person, the person would have said, I was defending myself. I saw that person coming and I decided to lash out first. I was defending myself. I was not hurting that person. I was defending, was on defense. You see what I'm trying to say? This is what I'm talking about. We kind of reason it with our own perceptions. Now, you, the one who feels like a victim that you were hurt, you seeing this whole experience differently from your own point of view. And that person that so-called hurt you, that you perceived hurt you, is seeing it differently. Now, remember, we all got egos, and most of us are working from the ego. So you that's kind of hurt, you perceive yourself to be hurt, right? Or grieved in your own way, your ego is actually telling you that because of the fact of there is separation, there's a feeling of separatism between you and that person. That means there's no love, no connection. That's why we have a world of war with different wars and grievances because we don't feel connected. The egos tell us individually that we are separated. This is me, my home, my car, my things, my life, and you now infringed in my peace by coming to interfere in my life experience. A simple thing like crime. Crime is an interesting concept. If you look at it psychologically, crime is coming from lack. The lack is coming from separatism. You understand? So now people who feel lack and feeling separate from other people. There's me. I'm living in so-called poverty in my own perception. I don't have what you have. So I feel now that I need to come to you and take what you have so I can have again because of the feeling of separatism, the lack of love and lack of connection. And we can't blame the people that do that because the world is based on separation and disconnection. You understand? But the Course of Miracles helps us to see things differently, right? I was born in Belito. Oh, I'm from Bluff, my love. Bluff area, Toti side. I'm in Toti now currently, but I'm from the Bluff side, the Wentworth Port, right? But anyway, I lived in both in Durban and in Joburg, and I've lived abroad as well in other countries, Arab countries. But anyway, let me continue. Right. So let me continue here, right? So according to the Christian Bible, the concept of forgiveness is nothing new. But why is it something that we cannot embrace as people that believe in Christ, if you do believe in Christ, right? I'm not Christian, right? I don't practice Christianity, but I understand that the concept of Christianity, and I understand Christ. Christ is the ascended master. I believe that he had a big message for us, but we were misled by the political system, the Roman system. We are misled by his teachings. You must remember, if you go and look at the history of Christianity, if you are from a Christian background, most people who believe in Christianity and practice Christianity and label themselves as Christians don't know the history and the background of where it's coming from, right? They don't understand how Christianity became Christianity, basically. They don't understand that Yeshua, the character of Jesus, was actually around in the first century, and then only years, centuries later, 2-3 centuries later, did Christianity become a religion. So this guy, Yeshua, already paused and moved on. He left his teachings because people already believed in his teachings. However, his teachings were then skewed and misdirected according to what the institution wanted, according to what the Romans wanted, according to what the Gnostics believed or did not believe. Well, there's a lot of drama around the whole thing. Too many parts, moving parts, to try and understand exactly what happened, right? But as human beings, we must use our intuition. Yes, I'm from where we used to Wentworth, yes. You're from Bleater, you should know Wentworth people very well. But anyway, let's just not make a blanket statement on every person. I'm an individual. I am who I am. I don't represent Wentworth. I don't represent a certain group of people. I present love. I present God. I present myself because I believe that I'm God. I'm part of God, you understand? So when we get lost with identification, it's another separatism that we practice. I'm from Belito, I'm from Wentworth, I'm from Bluff, I'm from whatever. That's separatism, right? Now remember, with the love and connection comes the real truth. We are all human beings having an experience. We're all South Africans if we were born here. We're all parts of the global world, the global continent called Earth. We're all human beings. We're all are parts of God, Christ consciousness. You understand? Let's continue. So when you hold a grievance, my sweetie pie, you are mentally replaying the story about how someone hurt you, how you perceived it to be so. There's something that my guys have been showing me about the mind. The mind is quite interesting because when you see something, right, like now you see this crystal, right? It clicks a perception and understanding about the crystal, right? Like, for example, you see me on your screen now. It clicks and it triggers a perception. The perception now influences how you see me, basically, just like the crystal, okay? Like, for example, I said I'm from Bluff and stuff, Wentworth, all those things. You have already a perception because that name, that word, Wentworth, okay, Wentworth linked to this. There's a perception that comes in your mind. Now you really have a clear understanding, your own perception. When I think of Belito, I have my own perception, Belito, and yes, these type of people live in Belito. Already, I'm conditioned and my conditioning it affects my perception, basically, right? Now, my eyes and my mind, two wonderful tools. The eyes are just mirrors. They don't see the perception, the brain sees, the mind sees, not the eyes, right? Like you look in a mirror and you see yourself there, lovely, you're looking at yourself in a mirror and you see this vision of yourself. That's not the true you. That's the perception of who you think you are because your eyes it's the window, and then the brain gives you the idea of what you seeing. You're not really seeing through your eyes, you're seeing through your perception. So if you have a perception that you are not so good looking, that you are, you're not so great, that's your perception. When you look in the mirror, you're going to see that view. But when you see yourself in your perception as somebody who is powerful, handsome, educated, smart, all those things, good looking, wonderful features. When you see yourself in a mirror, you see all that because that's your perception. So as I said, we're all living in a sort of a delusional type of holographic reality. You understand? Because everybody's truth is differently. You different. You look at me and I see something. I look at myself in a mirror and I see something else. Because it's all about perception. You understand? That's the ego, and that's the separation that we have. We can never see the same thing the same way. Unfortunately, that's how it works. Right. So anyway, let's continue. Hi, sweetie pie. Fortunate. How are you, my sondo? How are you doing, my lovey? Thank you for joining my live. Today we're having a discussion. We're talking about your forgiveness. Right. Now, I cannot change the past. I can choose how I carry the past within me. I cannot change where I was born, but I can choose how to carry it, how to perceive it, how to live through this experience of being born in a certain place. I cannot change the past that I was abused and bullied in school, but I can choose how I carry the experience. Is it going to be a grievance experience, or it's going to be, okay, well, that person wasn't in his right mind. That person was not having a good time, or that person wasn't brought up well, wasn't taught well. He didn't know any different. You understand? So that's how life is, because everything is then a perception. How we see life is all based on a perception. Right. So when I'm saying I cannot change the past, but I can choose how I carry it, how I relate to the past. It says that I'm ready to take responsibility and heal from the situation, or I'm not ready. I want to still hold grudges. I still want to have enemies. I still want to have somebody who's my enemy in my life. You understand? I don't want peace. I want to keep the grievance going. So you have a choice here. Something happens in your life. You have a choice. You're either going to decide to hold the grievance, right, and don't forgive that person, or you're going to choose, well, I'll choose the road less traveled. I will forgive this person. I'll try and understand where he's coming from. Maybe he didn't have a good day. Maybe he wasn't brought up in a healthy family. Maybe his perceptions are all messed up. Maybe, maybe he's living out of fear. Things like that. So I need to look at things more, I'm trying to say, more expansively, instead of me just thinking about I'm a victim right now. The Course in Miracles speaks about forgiveness, choosing the path less traveled, basically, because resentment is not about healing. Resentment is about holding on to the past hurts and keep on playing that program of the grievance, because you haven't let go. You're not choosing forgiveness, right? So it says here, what love holds no grievances, right? You need love. Your experience was opposite to love. You choosing to see it as a mistake from the other person, or you choosing it to hold on to the grievance, right? Now remember, a grievance comes in a form of resentment, blame, anger, judgment, emotional resentment towards someone or something that you think wronged you, basically, right? That is not love, and that is not what Christians are taught, or what I think they should be taught. What's in the Christian Bible, it's in the New Testament, right? Let's continue. When you hold on to grievance, we are mentally replaying the incident, the story about how someone hurts us. According to the Course in Miracles, this keeps us locked in separation, right? The Course touches on the fact that love is our natural state. Love is our natural state. Grievance blocks our awareness of that love. You understand? Because we keep on replaying that bad incident, and we keep on saying, well, this person hurt me. And you're owning this whole pain and hurt. You don't know what to do with it, right? You instead of you releasing it or choosing to release it, you decide to hold on to it. So when it says hold on to grievances, it means that your true love cannot coexist with resentment. right? So when the Course of Miracles says love holds no grievances, it means that the true love cannot coexist with resentment, basically, right? In other words, you cannot love somebody and hate him at the same time. It doesn't work like that. It's in either you love that person or you hate that person. You understand? And hate is so far from our teachings, our Christian teachings, even our other religious teachings as well, right? So why the Course says the grievance is stored perception, you understand? Now we are going more into the Course of Miracles here. So yesterday I made a live. If you're not in my live yesterday, I spoke about the Course of Miracles, which is a teaching of how to change your mindset to see things differently. It's not about religion, because even the person who was given this information, Helen, who was psychologist in 1959 till 1976, when the teachings were actually published in the form of a book. Right? She was not a spiritualist, neither was she a religious person. She was a scientist. She was a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, right? Basically, let's continue, right? So, why the Course says grievances distort perception? The Course philosophy, the course in Miracles philosophy says the ego thrives on separation and judgment. The ego thrives in separation and judgment. Grievances strengthen the ego because they keep the idea alive that someone is guilty and someone is innocent. In this world, it has to be the guilty and the innocent, the rich and the poor. Duality, right? It's duality. It is what it is. Now, our job is to not buy into the duality. You understand? The ego is not a bad thing. Neither is it a good thing. It is a form of understanding the world. Because when you were small, you're born without an ego. When you were born into this reality and left spirituality and decided to come into this physical plane called the earth, this holographic reality, right? You had no ego. You were a blank slate, fresh from the top, from the other side. When you came in, then your family now taught you about separatism, your culture, your background taught you about the ego. How did we learn? First thing, a small child, when you were born, you are meshed to your mother, especially I'm talking about people, children that are born in close families, your mother nurtured you and stuff like that, right? You were one with your mother. You didn't understand this concept. When you were hungry, you lashed onto her breast and you suckled and she kept you warm, right? Now you were meshed with your mother because of the 9 months of being in the incubator in her body. You were one with her. Now all of a sudden you're born, then all of a sudden you're growing up. At the age of 2, you already know about separatism. You already know that your mother's separate to you, that your mother's needs are different to yours, that you've got siblings too as well whose needs are different to yours, that they are I's and you're also an I, and this is me and this is you. That's how we learned about separatism. Okay, guys, it's part of the game, part of the program, the matrix game, right? The holographic game of life. However, what happens as we grow up, we get to understand that the ego is running everything now. The ego is now keeping us separated from God too as well. Because now we learn about this Christian God who has a personality. Ooh, he's scary, he's judging, he's harsh, and he's got these 10 rules. Just like at home, there's those rules at home and stuff like that, rules of engagement at home and laws. And then in the church, it's the same thing. In society, in the schools, it's the same thing. There's laws and there's rules. Don't do this, do that. Be a good child, be a good boy. Come early, don't come late. All those things, rules of engagement. Now we learn about these rules, okay? Now the rules add more separatism, that I am me, I'm separate from everybody else. And then we can learn about competition. It's another program. Now this world is so competitive. It's at home, I'm competing for the attention from my mom, between my siblings and myself. I'm competing for attention. If I'm a good girl, I'm always helping mommy clean the house, whatever. I'm actually accepted more. But if I do the opposite, I'm not a good girl or good boy, I'm now rejected. You understand? Now you say, okay, I need to behave in a certain way because there's rewards in being good. And it's also competition, yeah. Okay, me and my siblings, we need mommy's attention. Now we all kind of, on a subconscious level, fighting for her attention. You understand? Yeah, and that's how we learn about scarcity. There is not enough love from mommy and daddy. And yeah, see, these are the programs that are introduced gradually into our lives, linked to separatism, linked to the fact that this world is all about competition. You go to school now, you're 6 years old, went to preschool and everything, you already were taught about the competition, that you have to do very well in school. You must listen very well and you must do better than the other sibling, other children in your class and your siblings at home. You must do much better because, yeah, there's rewards attached to being the best um, speaker, the best writer, the best person in the class when it comes to maths and stuff like that. Then you find those children that are not so good in maths or whatever else, they're feeling kind of left out, you know what I'm trying to say? And then you kind of isolate yourself further, and then that's what adds more to the separatism that we are taught in this reality. But the Course of Miracles tells us there's a way to climb out of that perception. There is a way to climb out of that perception by remembering who we are, right? So if you have not came across the Course in Miracles, right, I advise you to go and Google it. There's books on it. There's a book called the Course in Miracles, right? And there's also the teachings on it as well, teaching you how to climb out of separatism in your mind, how to change your perception, and how to get more closer to Christ consciousness, unity consciousness. You understand? Understand that love is everything. Let's continue. So the Course of Miracles says that the grievances distort our perceptions about life, okay? In the Course, the philosophies that says that the ego thrives on separatism and judgment. The ego thrives on separatism and judgment. You are not your body. You are not the ego. The ego and the body are just systems or things that allow us to experience this reality, right? But now the truth of the matter is that the ego has been causing the inner suffering. Basically, you understand? So grievances strengthen the ego because they keep the idea alive that someone is guilty and someone is innocent, right? Even our court systems, our legal systems talks about innocence and guilty, right? Now, recently there was a cashing Tronston thing in the week. Now, you try and think of what type of people that can sit down and plan these things. What's going on in their heads? What are they really thinking? There is so much scarcity in their reality, in their perceptions, that they feel that they need to plan a robbery, a very risky robbery that might just get other people hurt and even killed as well. You understand? These type of things. That's because people have this perception of lack, right? They have that perception of lack because of the fact that, yes, they feel separate from everybody else. There are those affluent people living in certain areas of the world, driving certain types of cars, and I don't have it. You understand? There are those people that having all their monies and everything, and I don't have it. I'm just about struggling, making it to have food on my table. You get what I'm trying to say? That type of struggle mentality together with intelligence, because it takes the intelligence for you to start thinking like that. You understand what I'm trying to say? The ego and the right mind, logical thinking. Okay, if we do this, we can get that done. So that we're able to take that money. And you said, I don't care who gets hurt. I don't care who gets traumatized. I don't care. I'm just thinking about myself because I feel I'm separate. That's where crime comes into play. That's where all these atrocities against human beings come into play. For example, the e-files. Think about it. Wealthy people coming together and doing terrible things to other people that need their love and the assistance, but instead they start doing bad things to those people and start gaslighting them and torturing them and abusing them, assaulting them and all those things because they feel separate from those people. They feel like those people are not us. They're not us, the wealthy, the rich people, right? We can use them as toys, not understanding that that is so far from love. And you that's doing that type of thing and living like that in your mind, right? Your frequency is so low and you're so soaked in separation. You don't see that when you're hurting your brother, you're hurting yourself. On a spiritual level, maybe not on a physical level, you won't see it, but on a spiritual level, because it's something called karma. We're all connected. From the lowest level person in society, the sweepers, the cleaners, the people that are low level living in the undeveloped areas of the world, what we call them, tin shanties and all those things. They're still people. They're still connected to us. So you might feel you're riding your high horse in your living wherever you may be, what may be living believes our sense, and you think you're better than other people, right? It doesn't mean that. At the end of the day, you're still connected to every single person. You're still a soul having a human experience. And if this game is energetic, and there's different layers of life, right? Like I can explain to you now, right? We have the legal system. The legal system is playing within the game itself. It's not the real legal system. We don't even have a legal system on a spiritual level, because there's no need for a legal system. More than what they have there is frequency. Basically, just basically frequency. Right? So basically, there's high frequency, low frequency. So whatever you are doing in life that's causing grievance and pain to others is deemed to be low frequency. No matter how much money you have in the world, it doesn't mean because you have a lot of money in the world that your frequency is high. It simply means that you have more commodity, more physical ability. You still have more access to money and more access to things that other people cannot have. You understand? It doesn't mean that you're high frequency. It took me a long time to understand basically that money doesn't mean anything really. All it simply means I have the means to buy the cars, the houses, to travel the world, to see things because I've got the money means. It doesn't mean that I am now this high enlightened being that will never die, because you're going to die as well. Just as a person with no money will pass one day and leave this reality and leave the physical body, same as you living on a high top level society, traveling the world and stuff like that. You will leave the body one day. Yeah, you might try to store it because you have the means to do so. You can buy all the medication, you can do whatever the treatment because you have the money, but eventually you will go the same way. You understand? Because at the end of the day, yeah, it is what it is. We came here for the experience of being in a human body, right? But we forgot who we are, that we are divine consciousness, that we are love. Let's continue with the Course of Miracles teachings right now. You see the person through the lens of the past, right? When you're holding a grievance, you reinforce the belief in separation when you're holding the grievance. You block your ability to experience peace. You actually cause your own pain and suffering. Buddhism, think about Buddhism. If you know anything about Buddhism, Buddhism is about alleviating human suffering. As an individual, you increase your frequency and understand that you are connected to every person, and we're all connected to God. We all are God, basically, right? So when you block your ability to experience peace, right, you cause your own suffering by you holding on to that grievance and making excuses for hurting the other person, or making excuses to not release that grievance and not forgive that person. We look for most serious excuses. I'm not going to forgive you for what you did because of ABC. I'm not going to forgive you because of what you did, because of ABC. I feel it. I'm reliving it every single day. I keep on reliving that experience, not understanding I'm in an illusion, a holographic reality. Nothing here is truly happening. It's all a dream. What they call it, a fever dream, as it's called by some spiritual teachers. We are in a fever dream. But now the trick was to remember who you are, to be the matrix, to wake up from the fever dream. But how can you wake up from the fever dream when you feed on separatism, if you're not forgiving others because you don't see yourself as one with them, right? And because of your programming, you understand your programming through your life, your programming. What's your program to hate other people, but only like certain people that belong to your club, people that belong to your community, people that belong to your skin color, people that are same like you? Is that your program? You understand? Because that program causes separatism, basically, right? So let's continue. Forgiveness removes the filter. The filter, and it makes you wake up from the matrix. You wake up from the matrix when you see that we all one, that forgiveness is key, right? What forgiveness really means in the Course of Miracles. Forgiveness is in the Course of Miracles is very different from conventional forgiveness. Not the forgiveness that we always use. Okay, I forgive you, even though you hurt me, I forgive you. But you're still acknowledging that that this person did something to you. You're still acknowledging the separatism. You're still acknowledging it, right? That's the conventional forgiveness that we have, right? And it does not mean saying that what happened was acceptable, right? That does not mean that what happened, what you perceive to have happened to you, is acceptable. Forgiveness does not mean denying your feelings. It does not mean pretending nothing happened. As I said, I cannot change what happened, but I can choose how I carry it. Basically, that's what this simply means here. Right, let's continue. He said, instead of saying, for example, recognizing that the ego's interpretation may not be the ultimate truth. You understand, the ego's interpretation, your own perception, your egotistical perception of what happened to you in your life may not be the ultimate truth, right? Choosing peace over judgment. Sometimes you need to travel the road less traveled or the path less chosen by choosing peace, right? Choosing peace over judgment. Releasing the emotional attachment to your grievance. You understand? Releasing the emotional attachment to your grievance. In other words, you stop letting your past control how you see yourself and other people around you and that other person that so-called grieved you. You understand? They'll hurt you. The spiritual purpose of forgiveness. Why do we need to forgive? The Course in Miracles teaches that forgiveness is usually for our own healing. I'll repeat myself. The forgiveness is usually for our own healing, not for the other person, not just the other, not for them, but he will also get an energetic healing himself. You understand? Because number one, he's not expecting you to forgive them or her. But when you do forgive them, they also get energetic healing as well. You're giving them a chance to also get some sort of healing. But you are the main person that's affected by your forgiveness, okay? So the Course teaches you that when grievances are released, when you release grievances, your mind becomes peaceful. You're at peace. We have no enemies anymore, right? You're not holding any emotional prisoners anymore. You have peace. The fear dissolves. The fear dissolves. Love becomes visible again. Now you see life in a better, expanded way. Life becomes visible again. Okay. So, in the Course of Miracles, grievances is like a cloud covering the sun, right? The sun is the love, right? Which is always there, but now it's clouded by the grievance, by the negativity, the resentment that blocks the sun. Forgiveness simply removes the clouds. I like that part. Forgiveness simply removes the cloud and you get to see the love of God again. You see the love of life again. Because now you're choosing to see so, right? Yeah. Thank you, sweetie pie, Masono. Thank you for responding to my live. I accepted amen, and so it is. Thank you so much. Let's continue. Right. How does forgiveness apply to everyday life? How can we use the Course of Miracles perception of way we can see the world? Practicing this principle might look like this. Notifying when resentment appears, right? Notify or notice when the resentment appears within you, right? Pausing before reacting. What they say, there's a spiritual teaching about 5-second rule where you don't respond for 5 seconds. You listen to what's happening, you observe what's happening in your environment, right? What's happening, and then you give it 5 seconds and then you respond. You don't just respond, right? Get my point? You just like, yeah, you're trying to absorb what's happening, see it, understand it, feel how the body feels when this thing has happened. Like, for example, somebody walks into the office and they look at you and they say to you, why are you wearing that dress? In that way, shady way. Why are you wearing the dress? Don't you look at yourself in the mirror? Some people can say very nasty things, right? But anyway, then what did you say? You look at that person, you can either react or respond. Now, the 5-second rule is to be able to respond, because now you're absorbing what this person has just said. So it's total bullshit, right? It's just horror, nonsense. But you're not just going to just react by screaming or insulting. You're gonna like take it in for maybe a couple of seconds. In those seconds of you pausing and really taking in what the person has said, you also deciding within yourself, should I respond or should I just ignore this person? Mostly what I do when I know I'm very angry, this thing is what this person said it's not good at all, it's shady. I tend to kind of, say nothing. I'll just continue what I'm doing, like I never heard you. It's like doing this. Hold on, I'm not taking this bullshit. But if you know what I mean, now there's somebody who's more in tune to your intelligence, emotional intelligence is key, right? So instead of you just responding or rather reacting to certain things, learn how to respond. Response means I'm listening. I'm going to take in what you said, and then I'm going to now consciously decide how I'm going to respond. And maybe I'm not going to respond at all. Maybe I'll just do and continue with my life and let you do whatever you want to do, because what you said is silly. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, how would they call it? I'm like, what you said just went past me. It never even registered to me because it's bullshit. You understand? So that's just how we can actually conquer our emotions, by understanding that that's a 5-second or 2-second rule of not responding. 2 second, 5 second, but I think it's most 2 second, because it can be short period or brief moments of you trying to understand what that person is saying and figuring, should I respond or should I just let it slide? Because it's nonsense. You understand? Maybe this person's having a bad day. She's going cuckoo or something. You know what I'm trying to say? As my husband says, every single person in this world is not in their right state of mind. Every single person in this world is not in their right state of mind. Okay, so give people compassion. Like when you're driving in a car, you're on a highway, you're on an N2 and whatever, and people are being bullshit, overtaking, driving crazy on N2. Understand that every single person in this world is not in their right state of mind because of stresses of life, because of having a perception that it's low frequency. Maybe just had a fight with his wife and he left the house and now he's taking all his frustration on everybody else on the road. Or maybe he's stressed, he's going to write an exam or whatever. Maybe it's fear, whatever it is, guys. Every person is going through their own level of suffering, inner suffering and turmoil. You see me on the road, you see me in the shopping mall, I'm looking good. You don't know what's happening within me. I'm looking good, I'm showing up, my hair's looking well, my weave is weaving, and I'm looking good, but you don't know what's happening within me. You don't know my securities, you don't know my fears, you don't know my inner sufferings. Right? Same as every person else is driving in the road. Have compassion for every single person and yourself, because we're all going through something in this world. You understand? Not every single person is in the right state of mind. Okay, now in the course of miracles, it teaches you about compassion. It teaches you compassion for that person who so-called hurt you, and also for yourself as well. Okay, so the first step to understand that every single person is experiencing life in their own level of awareness. They all have in their own level of suffering within them. You understand? So if you can relate to what I'm saying, right? Please make a note and just send me a message so you can tell me, like, I relate to this, or I don't relate to it. I think that people are just bad, whatever it may be. And another thing you need to understand is this: since we all one, I am you, you are me. This is kind of hard to try and phantom in your mind, okay? In the what they call it, the beginning, when we split from God, apparently, right? And then we went in different directions, and little formations of us were formed. Okay, that separation doesn't mean that we're not really separate from God. It just means that we are unique beings having an experience here on this earth. It doesn't mean that we separated totally from source, because we are source, right? There's parts of us that still longs to be one with God. That's why we have religion, we have spirituality, because there's parts of us that still wants to be part of God, still wants to be part of the light. That's why we have religions in this game of life. We have religions, but then they've used it not for our own awareness and expansion, but for our control. Right? When you have a God that's damning, a God that is Yahweh, that is damning, that is judgmental, gave you 10 commandments. That is a human thing. It's not a God thing. It's not from the higher levels of consciousness. That's judgment. I'm judging you now because you're lesser than me. You understand? If you look at nature, we have the seasons in different parts of the world, okay? Like currently now in the southern hemisphere, we're having summer. We're going to have what they call it, autumn now, right? We're into autumn now. On the 21st of March, we hit winter solstice, as they call it, right? We have winter. And if you look at nature itself, it's not damned. And we're parts of nature. Why do we feel like that we are damned? Because we are sinners, because the church told us that we are a sinful person. And if you don't live like this, according to what they say in the Christian church, then you're a sinner. You know, it says everything against what is true about God. God is love, and love is not judgmental. Love allows you to experience your experience, right? Because you're part of it. You're part of God. You're part of love. It doesn't mean that God will condone the bad things you do, because there's a system in place, cause and effect, karma. Cause and effect doesn't allow you to do something negative and escape the consequences of their negativity. It doesn't allow it. You're either going to suffer it within you, or you will suffer it outside. You know what I'm trying to say? Like the public will know that you did wrong and stuff, that you go to jail and all those things. But inside, people have what they call feeling of regret and pain within themselves, and they want to find ways of trying to make it right with God, because they're feeling bad within themselves. I'm saying that this system has its own system governing it in the game of life. God is not going to be standing there and rewarding and punishing and rewarding and punishing when the system is doing it already. You understand? And remember, we came here for the human experience, which is away from oneness. So what comes with that comes separatism, with that comes suffering and joy, dualistic type of experience, suffering and joy. However, if you want to get closer to love, go and read about the Course in Miracles. Go and download the video, listen to what the teachings are about. If you can buy the book on Take-A-Lot as well, if you want to, or even on Amazon, whatever, right? You can find the book and read more about how you can learn how to love and forgive the unforgivable, what they call it, the unforgivable. And in this world, there's nothing that's unforgivable, unfortunately. Everything is forgivable here. The core teachings. The central message behind love holds no grievance is love is our true nature. Grievances are learned mental habits. They are mental habits linked to the ego. Forgiveness is the path back to peace, back to love, back to God. When you think about it, forgiveness is the path back to love, back to God. When grievances disappear, what remains is clarity, compassion, and connection. And sometimes you feel, okay, should I forgive this person? And my friends keep on telling me, don't forgive that person. What I did to you was horrible. That person's a hateful person. That person is a devil. That person's antichrist, whatever. We tell each other that nonsense, right? Making it more difficult, because the ego that cannot survive without grievances. The ego cannot survive without the grievance, because the grievance says I'm separate from you, and the ego feeds on the separatism. You understand? Now let's continue. What the Course in the Miracles? What is a Course in Miracles? Let me talk more about that. The Course in Miracles is often known as ACIM, is a spiritual self-study program that teaches a psychological and spiritual path to peace and self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others. I'll repeat myself. The Course of Miracles also known as ACIM, is a spiritual self-study program. A self-study program, not religion. It's a self-study program that teaches us a psychological and spiritual path to inner peace and inner acceptance through forgiveness. Inner acceptance through forgiveness. Inner acceptance through forgiveness. It was established or published. This lady Helen, the psychologist I spoke about earlier on, Helen, is it Schumann or whatever? It's quite, I think it's a German surname, but she was living in America in 1959, right? She was channeling Christ, in other words, right? She had this message, an inner message. She was actually a clairvoyant, but she didn't call herself that, right? She got the message. She did automatic writing, and she got this message, like how did other Conversations with God, that book, something similar. She got it in the same way. She got the teachings of the Course in Miracles from a interaction with Source. In other words, she was given that message by Christ consciousness, by Jesus. Okay, so and then in 1976, the book was written called The Course in Miracles. The first book was written in 1976, The Course in Miracles. Right, so she believed that the person or the material was pushed through by Jesus Christ's consciousness. Right, the Course is not a religion, as I said. It is a spiritual philosophy and mind training system to change your perception, to understand that separation is an illusion. It's designed to help people shift from fear to love, from ego, fear, separatism to love and oneness. Right now, we know this concept has been out there a lot recently, especially from last year, 2 years ago. Oneness, love, embodiments of love and peace and wellness is coming from teachings of the Course of Miracles. Right, guys? So, the Course of Miracles consists of a text which explains the philosophy, and then there's a workbook for students for 365 days. Each day you have a lesson. Right, you learn how to change your perception and your habits. When you change your perceptions, you change your habits. You change how you see the world and you see yourself. Look in the mirror and you see grace. You don't see any imperfection. You see perfectness. You see grace. You see love. When you see other people, you see grace. You see love. Even the people that so-called hurt you in the past, it moves you from the past to the now. It moves you from living in the past in that pain and frustration to the now, which is quite interesting, right? Let's continue. So as I said, there's a workbook for students for 365 days. Each day you get a lesson, right? And then a manual for teachers, answering questions about the teachings in the Course in Miracles. The central message here is the root of suffering, of human suffering, is the belief in separation. And the path back to peace is forgiveness. Right? Why forgiveness is the central practice of the teachings. Right? A Course of Miracles, forgiveness is the key that undoes the illusion of separatism. The illusion that you are separate. It undoes it when you are allowed to do so. Right? The Course teaches that humans live in a mental system, a mind, the collective mind, dominated by the ego, the collective ego, right, which constantly judges, compares, and blames. Okay, so now if you think of the collective mind, collective ego, we can speak about the political atmosphere as it is now, with Mr. Trump doing all those things that he's doing. He has this perception of power and control, and he's using America to actually control power and be powerful over others that seem to be more weaker with less influence. Right now, separatism, that's separatism. Every country, especially countries that are powerful, like the Western countries with more money and material wealth and stuff like that, they feel they're more powerful than those that have less. That's separatism. The ego comes into play here, right? So you can't come into my country. I need to do a test if you can speak English first. I need to assess that you have enough money in your bank account. You can't come into my country. It's about control. My country is more superior than yours. You understand that kind of thing? And we buy into this whole drama as Africans that Africa is a lesser important country and lesser abundant country than the other Western countries. And yet Africa is the ground where they get all the resources, including human resources. Because most of the people that travel out and leave Africa, go to other countries, they are adding to those countries' economies, they are adding into those countries' financial well-being while they leave their own countries to suffer. And you can't actually blame them because it's all a perception. It's all a perception that's fed from the matrix that Africa is a lesser place. It's only a place to take resources, including people as well. It's not a place that they can be known for its wealth, not in a positive way because it's being oppressed. That it's lesser. People with black skin are lesser than people with white skin. All that nonsense. You understand? All that separatism. There's different programs in the matrix that feeds onto separatism, right? And these things have caused problems in the human mind, collective mind, may I say. We have a collective mind that's full of separatism, racism, colorism, too much differences. You know what I'm trying to say? The weak must be abused by the stronger. You understand, like what happened with the e-files? Think about it, right? Mr. Einstein decided to use his position coming from nowhere because he doesn't have wealth. His family never had any wealth. According to what they have said about him, he didn't come from influent background, right? So when he reached that power and have all influence, instead of him helping his fellow people from the lower levels of society, decided to abuse them, to gaslight them, to sexually assault them in the name of, if you do this and I'll do that for you type of transaction. But in the same way, you're selling your soul, you're selling your body to be used by this person in the name of you having fame. That is gross abuse. Gross abuse. And now we get to learn these things. Everything is coming out of all the people that were involved, including gurus, which is kind of sad, right? So we're living in a world of separatism. So those people that claim to be holy, they're still living in dualisticness, separation. They can do bad things and hurt other people. And yet they say they're gurus, they are holy people, they are pastors. This has been happening for how long? Even in the Roman Catholic Church. When that story early on in the early 90s, story came out about even the 80s, the pastors or the preachers or the clergy in the Catholic Church were raping young boys, molesting young boys sexually and stuff like that. That is not godly. That is so far from God, because wherever human beings go with their egos and they go with their preferences and they go with their fracturedness, with their pain and their suffering, and they get these high positions in society, and because they're broken, they play out the broken game by abusing other people, by using other people, by gaslighting other people, but on the top, in the front end, they all holy. Dalai Lama is also mentioned in that thing. So this is like, yeah, it makes you think that, yeah, your title doesn't mean you're perfect. Your title doesn't mean that you are all white and innocent. Your title, your holy title, doesn't mean that you're perfect. It means that you're just using a title, and people are now perceiving you and assigning meaning to you by your title, not understanding who you are, not getting to know you. What they said, you'll know a person by his deeds, right? The fountain, the water comes out of the fountain is depending on the quality of the fountain. If the fountain is polluted, the water that comes out of the fountain is going to be polluted. Right? So the source, you are the fountain, you're the body, you are the person having human experience, right? Your body is the fountain. What comes out of you, your actions, your deeds, is the water of life. You understand? If that water is polluted, it's going to damage and kill everything around it. That's why it's important for us to understand that we need to take ownership of our life experience, heal what needs to be healed, and start walking around and hurting other people when you're already broken and you're not healed. But you're claiming to be healed because you hold a holy title. And behind the scenes, you're doing all strange things. So now all these things are coming out to light because we are in a point of purging the old, letting go of all the pain so we can raise our frequencies. right, as human beings and reach another level of awareness. But we need to recognize that these bad, dark things have been happening and are still happening because there are still souls or people choosing the darkness, choosing unforgiveness, choosing to hurt other people and abuse their power because it gives them more power, it makes them feel powerful. However, it's good to know that eventually everybody's going to turn to the light. Eventually, every person's going to see that they still need the light. That light is important. That love is important. The only thing in life is love and light. So forgiveness is key, guys. If you have not as yet, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. As I said, I'm Sissy, life coach and motivation speaker, and I'm also a spiritual teacher as well. So if you're interested in type of topics that I'm talking about, right, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Send me a message, introduce yourself. I'd like to know where you're from and exactly what spiritual practice you're actually practicing and what you think about spirituality and about your background. Tell me more about you. Let's become friends, right? Let's become friends. We're already connected, right? Because of frequency, because of understanding, right? I would like to connect with people more, intensively, by getting to know you more. So just send me a message when you finish, subscribe to my channel and introduce yourself to me, and we can have a discussion as well, right? Remember that you are love, that you are the light. Choose forgiveness, because forgiveness is the only true thing in this reality that can actually allow us to escape the matrix, escape the system of division and pain and suffering. When we realize that we're all connected, and what I do and what I say is important to others, because when I'm hurting somebody else, I'm hurting myself. Okay? Eventually, it'll come back to me because of the cause and effect, the karma effect, right? So have a great week further, and remember, be kind and loving. I do tarot as well, right? If you have a TikTok and you have follow people on TikTok, you can find me on TikTok as well. I normally do the Sunday and Saturday tarot readings on TikTok, right? What my light seers tarot. Okay, I read for people, right? So if you are interested in that type of content as well, you can just connect to me on my TikTok with the same name, manifest underscore with underscore sissy, and you'll find me on TikTok. All right. So have a great week further, and be kind to yourself and be kind to each other. Right. Keep well, guys. Bye. See you next time.